Welcome back to Matchplot. In today's video we look ahead to Coventry versus Norwich. With the international break pausing Championship football, teams have had a chance to rest, recharge and integrate their new signings. This fixture promises to be full of entertainment and a tight tactical battle. Coventry's last outing ended in a scrappy 2-2 draw with Oxford. A real tale of two halves, but it felt like drop points. The transfer window left fans somewhat underwhelmed, and even club owner Doug King admitted the squad was looking a bit thin. But the business that was done was smart and astute. The core 11 is strong enough to cause problems for anyone. The overall mood has shifted since the 7-1 win and the CBS Arena purchase. Less elation, more realism. Sitting in 5th, Coventry will want 3 points to kickstart what is a very challenging September. Norwich, meanwhile, have had a mixed start. 2 wins and 2 defeats. Performances have shown quality in parts, but with so many changes over the summer, they certainly have lots of promise, but no doubt Liam Manning still needs time to settle his team. Currently they're sat in 11th, but their aim will be much higher, a playoff spot at the very least. And now into lineups. Coventry's last 11 was a strong one, but with limited depth, the team almost picks itself. That said, I would like to see a tweak with the return of Sakamoto out wide, and I'll explain why later in the video. Wolfenden comes in as our new transfer, and while he could start, I think it's more likely he comes on for the last 20 to 30 minutes just to build that match sharpness. He hasn't started in a while, and this would be a big ask. Although with Norwich being Ipswich's major rival, the former Ipswich man will no doubt be desperate to play a part. There are also questions over De Silva, who missed the Wales squad with a suspected injury. If he's out, Brow will likely step in as his replacement. Now Norwich usually set up in a 3-4-2-1 with Josh Sargent leading the line. They've rotated their starting 11 so far this season, but now the window is closed, it's likely we'll see more consistency from them. Even so, they've got plenty of options off the bench who can make an impact, so Norwich fans, let me know who would be in your starting 11. So now it's time to take a look at Norwich's key metrics. Now firstly, defensive line. They hold a relatively high line with the back three stretching wide and the wing backs often advanced. It's slightly less aggressive than Coventry's press, but still compact enough to squeeze space. However, there's always that risk that space is left in behind. And now for their offensive line. Going forward, Norwich push high up. Both wing-backs are keen to get high up the pitch at every opportunity, offering width and their deliveries. Their press isn't as aggressive as Coventry's, however they ensure breaking the lines is as challenging as possible with their good positioning. Now, average position-wise, against Middlesbrough, even down to 10 men, Norwich held their shape well. You can see the clear back three stretched across the pitch, with wing-backs pushing high, seeking to attack at every opportunity. That width secures coverage, but leaves gaps. Against Blackburn, it was the same. Wide back three, progressive wing-backs, and a dense midfield. Now, Blackburn managed to minimise Fisher, but Diallo still caused problems. Now, onto their shot map. Now, Norwich take a lot of efforts from outside the box. Their patient build-up often creates space on the edge, and while they've certainly got quality to punish teams from that distance, it's definitely a threat to keep an eye on. Onto their pass map, they favour short, patient passing in the defensive and middle thirds, keeping structure before suddenly flipping the switch once the lines are broken. Against Blackburn, this was more clear, calm build-up, and then sharp progression into that final third. Their touch map reinforces this. Norwich don't force their play. They're happy to keep possession, control the tempo and attack when the opportunities open up. Now into goals and expected goals. They've been created good quality chances and importantly, finishing them too. Possession wise, they're quite similar to Coventry. They look to dominate games and take control. Certainly one of the stronger possession teams in the league, so I'd expect a real battle for the ball here. Touches in the box tell a different story. Coventry are way out in front with 155 touches in the opposition area, while Norwich are 17th. That might suggest a lack of penetration, but they're still creating clear-cut chances and, scoring them. Now onto their scorers. Josh Sargent has been the standout, 5 goals already, making him the league's top scorer. Beyond him, only Harry Darling has chipped in, so Norwich will be desperate to find more goal contributors. Now let's take a deep dive into how they play. So Norwich's 3-4-2-1 is designed to dominate the ball and high up the pitch. As they build, both wing-backs fly forward, more like wingers than defenders. This system creates constant triangles and a strong box midfield. It gives Norwich the foothold to dictate the game, so if they're pressed, they always have a spare passing option to bypass pressure. And when teams do press, and even man for man, Norwich threaten with bypassing the press with dink passes over the top or a switch of play, finding acres of space in behind. They love exploiting gaps between these lines, dragging opposition defenders into vulnerable positions. The box midfield is crucial here. The extra man creates overloads, forcing the opposition to press, but it opens space elsewhere. And once that space is there, Norwich can bypass the midfield and drive forward quickly. Inside forwards usually stay narrow, but they also tend to drift wide on occasion to combine with the wing-backs, and that overloads flanks and forces tough decisions. Do midfielders track back and leave gaps centrally, or do wide players drop in, pinning the team deeper and then making it harder to break out? Without the ball, Norwich drop into a condensed 5-4-1, with the front three pressing in coordinated lines. It's a disciplined structure, but very demanding on the wing-backs, especially someone like Diallo, who loves to push forward, so Norwich will need to be careful not to be caught out. The concern for Norwich here is Coventry's 4-4-2 press. If this is executed well and passing lanes are blocked, well, it requires really good ball-playing centre-backs to get you out of trouble, and you'll see the goalkeeper often playing far out his box to help this, sweep up anything and be available for a pass. However, any mistake and Coventry will be in. And this is something Coventry are very strong at, being first in the stats on possession won in the final third, so expect to see some quick transitions. Norwich themselves will no doubt be aware of this, having been caught out multiple times already this season. On the press, Norwich typically angle their press with Sargent and the two inside forwards, drifting across to block one side. Now, a quick switch of play can really hurt them, asking big questions of their wing-backs. Now, do they track the opposition winger and allow the opposition fullback to roam forward, or do they instead close down, leaving the opposition winger to be picked up by someone else? Again, something Norwich have been caught out a few times already. Now, onto set pieces. This is an area Coventry must watch. Norwich favour near-post deliveries with flick-ons and players flooding the box. That goes for both corners and free kicks. And given Coventry's nervous defending set pieces this season, this is a real danger zone for them. Now on to Coventry. Having seen the threat from Norwich, you may be tempted to go man for man in a similar three at the back formation, with the introduction of Wolfenden to shore things up defensively. And while there's good legs in it, our current setup and playstyle is a massive threat to Norwich. Coventry will be able to cause a lot of damage through width. Lots of play out wide and overlapping fullbacks, something, well, we're very good at. With Norwich's back three, the closer they get to their own goal, they typically go to a more compact shape, leaving space on either side. Now, Norwich may want to sit more defensively with their wing-backs, sitting deeper to cover this. However, it presents more space for our fullbacks to roam forward and create attacks. If Norwich seek to prevent that by their inside forwards drifting wide, then it opens up the midfield for Grimes, Torp and Radoni to take dominance, and after their recent form, we know how threatening that can be. This is a real tactical throwdown, a bit cat and mouse and having to adjust to one another, so I'm really interested to see how this plays out. Now, I mentioned my preference for Sakamoto to come in for this game. Now, this may seem unfair on Thomas Asante. I think he's actually been one of our better players. He's performed excellently. That said, from a tactical point of view, Thomas Asante prefers to drift inside and overload the defensive line. The issue is, with three centre-backs, this will likely be picked up by their spare defender. This relieves the wing-back from any defensive duties and can instead save energy and opt to stay further forward. Sakamoto, on the other hand, is a player that likes to stay wider and interlinks well with Milan down the wing, ensuring that our width and we continue to ask questions of that Norwich back line. Another reason for the move would be, well, Thomas Asante by trade is a striker who's being asked to play out wide. So with the potential of Norwich overloading our fullbacks, it's going to require some coordination and assistance from our wingers to track back and help out defensively. And whilst Thomas Asante has done a good job so far, I just think that the demand will be greater in a game such as Norwich, and it may be a big ask. Finally, I just want to comment on Norwich's backline. They defend high and squeeze the space between the defence and the midfield, making it difficult for the attacking team to break. This in turn means that they're often caught flat-footed and, well, they're not overly quick. So they've been caught for pace a number of times this season. This is well suited to Coventry's attack, and particularly with a fresh-legged Thomas Asante on against a tired back line who leaves space in behind, was a recipe for success. And now for just a quick recap on the Oxford game. Lampard would have been frustrated to drop points. We controlled much of the first half but grew scrappy after the break, losing midfield control and opting for more hopeful aerial balls. Fatigue and lack of depth on the bench may have played a part in this, perhaps a sign of things to come this season. However, Lampard will no doubt want Coventry back at their best for Norwich. Defensively, however, we're not as poor as some would make out. Coventry actually have the 5th lowest XG conceded in the league, and from open play, we're fairly solid. The real concern is set pieces. Now on to players to watch, starting with Coventry. Haji Wright, second top scorer in the league, sharper and more mobile than last season with seemingly his injury behind him. Jack Radoni, his energy on the press will be key and his talent on the ball will certainly be needed. He could bring the moment of magic that we need in this game. Victor Torp may not get the shooting space he's had in other games, but his through balls in behind the defence could cut Norwich open. Sakamoto, if starting, his width and energy will ask questions of their back line. And now on to Norwich's key players. We've got Josh Sargent with no surprise here. League top scorer, he must be forced to play with his back to goal. It's going to be a real challenge for our centre-backs, a real physical challenge too. Papa Diallo, adventurous wing-back and one of Norwich's top chance creators, but suspect defensively. Matthias Kvistgarden plays deeper behind Sargent, however still carries a real scoring threat. And finally, Vladan Kovacevic. He's a strong shot stopper. He's kept Norwich in a few games already this season, even with a penalty save in there. However, not something I'd normally comment on, but he does seem to have a trend of struggling to save shots to his right-hand side, even on tighter angles with lower XG, and perhaps this is something Coventry should look to target. Finally, on to predictions. I'm expecting the game to start quite edgy, with both teams trying to figure each other out. I can see Norwich initially being the dominant team with the extra man in midfield before it balances out. I'd expect Coventry to have their typical range of controlled passes, however seeking to be more direct, putting strain on that back three with quick transitions. I'd expect a lot of our play to come from the wings as well. Norwich will no doubt be settled in their passing, looking to put real pressure in the centre and control the midfield. Coventry will look to take advantage of balls in behind with clever runs and through balls. I'd expect a lot of touches in the box again. Norwich will look to seek space in between defensive lines and drive from there, so I'd expect a lot of shots from outside the box as they progress the ball against a well-structured defensive line. I'd expect both teams to have an expected goal figure between 1 and 2 with plenty of chances throughout the game. I can also see the game ending very edgy also, with Coventry being light on fresh legs and Norwich very strong off the bench. I can see it being tight. So far this season, Norwich's subs have made an impact, so some slight concern. We've run it through the model of a most likely outcome and it's come back with a 2-2 draw. The potential for goals, lots of chances and overall a potential for a really exciting game. So this is a game that could go either way. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. As always, thanks for watching, and if you'd like to support the channel, please subscribe. You can also catch me on social media or my Buy Me a Coffee page. That's it for today. Cheers guys, looking forward to the next match.